It's the chase, man. For me, it's filmmaking, the writing, the acting, the directing. It's a little of that Bukowski find what you love and let it kill you vibe, and the need for something that makes you feel all alive and on fire. It's more a pursuit of something I may never catch than an attainable goal I can count on. The chase. I call it that because somewhere deep down I don't know how it ends or when. There's always the next, always the never. No trophy worth stopping for and no end in sight. Before I had it, I was wondering and wandering. And we're all looking for our reason. Samantha Crain is a singer-songwriter, hails not far out of my hometown. She plays all over the world, and she has a chase of her own, and it has made all the difference.
I got started when I was about 16. It kind of coincided with when I started driving, because I always liked music, but when I could start driving, I could start driving up to Oklahoma City and go to concerts. There was an all-ages venue called the Conservatory. It's called something else now, but I would go up there and just see whatever band was playing. There was a record store next to that venue called Size Records. It's not there anymore, but I used to go in there and kind of shop around before the shows. And I found a record in there by a band called Songs Ohio. It was like on a sale rack. I just liked the cover of the CD. It was like purely judging the book by its cover moment. Mm-hmm. I listened to that record all the way home. That was the first time that I just heard this guy, Jason Molina, who was the lead singer. He was just singing by himself with this like really stark guitar, and that's all it was, but he was just like hitting at something really personal to me, and I just immediately kind of fell in love with that whole idea of like singer writing a song. Mm-hmm. My dad had bought me a guitar a couple of years before that, and it had just kind of been sitting in the closet because I'm just really stubborn, and I like kind of just pick up things whenever I'm ready to do it, not when someone else asks me to do it. So I kind of went home and got that guitar out and started kind of teaching myself based on, I went to Music Unlimited in Shawnee and got whatever guitar chord books they had. And I just started teaching myself chords and started from there, and then eventually would kind of like write poems and try to put them to music. And I just kind of built on that and started learning about songwriters and just became obsessed with it.
When did you start playing in front of people?
There used to be a coffee shop in Shawnee called The Bean and Berry.
Yeah.
And they had an open mic night. And I would learn a couple of covers because I wasn't like brave enough to play my own songs yet. And so I would learn something like, I think probably Creep by Radiohead was one of the first songs that I played out. And that felt really like edgy to me because it, had cuss words in it.
It's a great song. It's a great song.
Yeah. But I was playing at the coffee shop sometimes, and a lot of times I would drive up to the city to play open mics because I felt less, like, gazed upon by, like, my peers or my family or something. At the time, when I was just getting started, like, doing open mics, I was just happy to have found other people that seemed sort of like-minded and were, like, accepting of me. I found this group of people all of a sudden that I didn't feel like a complete outcast with. Yeah. And so for me, that was the biggest thing when I started, was just I found friends. I found a group of people that I can belong to. Late in the evening, I got lost in a drawer of names. Names on letters and photo booth strips
stubs from movies and baseball games.
Samantha's tough. She's guarded and she's intelligent. Doesn't seem keen on foolishness, but she wears some pretty kooky socks, and she argues there's no such thing as a guilty pleasure. An argument with me that she's winning at the moment. She feels wise beyond her years in conversation. It's difficult to read. She hoards her smiles, and I never got the idea that I got too close. But then she picked up her guitar and played. And her voice, all vulnerable and timeless, well, it breaks your heart into pieces. Leaves those pieces on the floor. Somehow she sounds fresh and new and now, and at the same time 50 years ago. After she played her song at Lunar Manor, I asked if I could give her a hug. The performance made my heart hurt. And she was gracious about my awkward request. I'm sure she gets that a lot.
I sent a record into a label that there was a band called the Avett Brothers that I liked at the time.
Oh, yeah.
And there was a small label that they were on. And I sent my record into them, probably like really decorated up. It had like all sorts of stuff in the package, who knows. I ended up getting an email from the guy that owns the record label. And he became my manager around that time and started talking to me about recording an album. So it was like the thing happened to me that they say like never happens, I guess. But there's a funny story behind it actually, because it's kind of luck that it happened. He had at the time a little 5-year-old boy. The little boy had been like digging in the box, the trash can that all the demo CDs go in.
Yeah.
And he had pulled mine out, I think, just because he liked the art on it or something. And Dolph, who's the guy that owns the label, was walking by his room one night and heard him listening to that. And he's like, "What are you listening to?" And then that's how he found my record or whatever. But I've been working with him ever since I was 19. He's been releasing my records and helping me like get in touch with booking agent and stuff like that. So
Okay, and have you been basically touring off and on ever since?
the only real break that I've taken in touring was the past 2 years, actually. I had some problems with my hands where I couldn't play. I got in like 3 car wrecks, all in the span of a summer, a couple years ago. 3 car wrecks in 3 months. Really messed my hands up.
And what kind of a recovery period did you have?
Well, I honestly didn't know if I was ever gonna recover because from what I was told, it was like nerve damage and that seems more or less kind of irreversible. And so I think at the time I just sort of like started working through this like cycle of grief almost, where I was thinking, okay, what if I never get to do this again? What if I can't ever play guitar again? And then moving to the point of saying like, it looks like I'm never going to be able to play guitar again. And then moving on to, okay, it's okay that I'm never going to be able to play guitar again. Had a good run, and then finally ending up to a point where all of a sudden my wrist started getting better through various like therapies and stuff. So yeah, now everything that I am able to do again is super special to me because I didn't know that I would ever get to. And so I just like, I don't take that for granted at all.
And I was in charge of everything you told me I should be. Exercising, philosophizing, sober for 3 weeks.
I always was like a writer, just sort of a introspective kid. My mom would buy me these like blank notebooks, and they had I don't know where she found them at, but all of the notebooks had like a picture of a person on it, and I would use that as like an inspiration to just write these really boring, lengthy like biographies of that person, and they were just like normal everyday people. It wasn't like this is a queen of something or the president. It was literally like, this girl's name is such and such, and they live in this town. And
This is Joe.
her favorite color is blue. And, you know, it's just like these horribly, like, lengthy, boring, like, just specific biographies of people. So the first songs that I wrote were, like, lyric first, because I wasn't, like, a good guitar player or anything at that point. And so I didn't know how to like come up with anything interesting musically and then write for that. It was more just like I have these words that I want to sing and find what of the 5 guitar chords that I knew at the time, fit with that.
It's funny because I remember, like, when I first started becoming aware of wanting to write, like, I was in, like, 7th grade, and they would do, like, vocabulary tests or whatever, and they'd want you to write a sentence for each word. And I would write, like, stories.
Yeah.
Because for some reason, I was compelled to do it. But I never, like, went that far. That's pretty amazing, to just get notebooks and then start writing biographies of people who didn't exist. So you obviously had something that you were wanting to get out.
Yeah, I think I was just, like, interested in people's stories, and most of the people that I knew where I was were all kind of the same. Like, I know that that's kind of, like, simplifying people, but I just liked the idea of there being people that had different childhoods and different adulthoods and looked different than me and acted different than me and spoke different than me. And so I think because I wasn't really party to a lot of that in my own life, in my own childhood, I just kind of like wanted to explore that a little bit.
When you come back, could you bring my heart? It's kinda hard living since you took it so far. Hope you kept it close and in your arms.
Do you like, say, composing, writing the music more than playing? I mean, is there an aspect of it that you like the most or that touches you the most?
It would be like as a painter getting access to like a new color and just like really enjoying putting that, like you might use it a lot at first, but then it just kind of goes in the toolbox. And I think that that's kind of how it works the longer you've been playing music. You might learn a new trick or get better at something, pick up a new instrument, and you might use it a lot at first, but then it just kind of goes into the toolbox of I have all of this at my disposal in terms of like writing. So I don't think that there's really anything that I like more than the other in general.
Like with filmmaking, it kind of feeds different animals. Like with writing, for me, like there's no compromise. You know what I mean? You're
Yeah.
limited only by your imagination and whatever words you have at your disposal.
Yeah.
Versus going into production, which it's a dance, it's a compromise, but it's also sort of a beautiful undertaking. It's difficult in a different way. Like, do you feel like one costs more for you in regards to the writing? Like, because your lyrics seem to be very personal. I mean, I'm not in your brain, but they feel really real, which, if that's true, that's fantastic. If it's false, it's fantastic, your ability to convey that. But then also the performance aspect of it is tough. It can be tough. So is there one that's more taxing to you?
It sort of just depends on the day, because sometimes performing to me can be muscle memory. Sometimes you just have to get out there and like play a show. But then other nights, it's literally the most emotionally draining thing that you could ever do, because every word and every note means everything to you. And I would say the same thing goes for writing, because there are some songs that you feel are good because you've tapped into somebody else's story really well and have conveyed that really well. And then there's some songs that work because they're completely and utterly personal to you. So I think it really just depends on the day. It all costs a lot some days and costs nothing other days, I guess.
Obviously, you're a very passionate person. What do you love about what you do?
Like when I started doing this, the main driving factor, the thing that I loved about it was the fact that I was like able to travel while I was working. I want to say that was sort of like a huge catalyst in like starting all of this. And then I started to realize the parts about creating that I liked, and recording and writing, and how that plays into all the aspects of my life. I love that I have a way to work through things. It's almost like a form of self-therapy, I think. Like, I can work through feelings and emotions by creating. Not necessarily always coming to, like, an end result, but just having that ability to work through problems that you have intellectually and emotionally, I think it's a huge benefit. I kind of have a rule for myself that I try to create something new every day that was not in the world before that day. I just feel like that kind of keeps me really in touch with what I feel like my purpose is, I guess. It can be something as small as just like, taking time to take a cell phone picture that I really like, or writing a single line of poetry. Some days I write multiple songs, so it's just like, but keeping that in mind where you kind of realize and accept that, okay, I'm here to create, and that's what's important to me, and that's what I do best. And so trying not to expect too much of yourself, but also keeping that focus there. So I think I'm just really lucky because there's so many aspects of what I do that are really fulfilling.
Samantha Crain's talent is undeniable. Her songwriting cuts you, and her ability to generate such soul in her sound and her voice, it almost knocks the breath out of you if you just shut up and listen. I get the feeling that most days she's totally cool with letting her songs do the talking for her, and they're good enough to do it. Hearing her speak about how she came to be, how she was looking for something that led to who she is now, this small town girl needing more and seeking it out, I'm glad she's out there, finding it and living it.
Yes, I know
The chase. Whatever it is for you, whoever you are, it was never about where you were going. Sure as hell was never about where you came from. It was that you were alive in the middle of it, that your eyes were wide, that your voice was strong, as you chased whatever it was that made your heart beat faster. And maybe Bukowski was off a bit. Maybe we're supposed to find what we love and let it save us. Here's Samantha Crain.
What's that silence inside me that expands into the dark? Are the traffic lights all changing for no one anymore? Karaoke laughter tumbling out the door, might as well with contemplation of the pleasures I endure. Holding to the edge of night, holding to the edge of night, holding to the edge of night. Deepest true desires interrupted with the dawn. A bar tab, a parking ticket, hold me back down from beyond. And I have searched for her in mourning, but she's quiet and austere. And as the moon floats above her, she unfastens all the fear. And I keep holding to the edge of night, holding to the edge of night, holding to the edge of night. it's there during the day. But as the sun sets around me, it strips the other sense away. And I am a legend of this land here. I am a keeper of this life. So when I die, however that is, I'll just say evening was my prize. And I keep holding to the edge of